morning, booktube. It is Monty, and today I am back again once again with the start of another video. I have just rolled out of bed, but I've been wanting to film this video for a couple of days now, and I have all the materials needed to film this little video. And so I'm here with technically 24-hour reading vlog. So it started last night at around 10 o'clock, because that's usually the time I go on my little nightly stroll around the neighborhood. And I have started listening to the good Dr. Professor Ashley Winstead's The Boyfriend Candidate. There's going to be some slight spoilers for the other book in the series, Fool Me Once, which I believe was in one wrap up. I'll leave it linked in the cards because I know I read Fool Me Once this year. I am very familiar with the good Dr. Professor Ashley Winstead. I've read her other books. In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I gave 1 star, and Last Housewife, which I gave 2 stars. And Fool Me Once I gave a single star, because if you don't know, that book involves a lot of cheating, like just foolishness. It involves a love interest who was seemingly obsessed with the main character for an absurd amount of it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. It just didn't click. And I have to say that there had to have been some kind of reading comprehension error in that book, because in this book, The Boyfriend Candidate, we were following the main character from Fool Me Once, her sister. So the main character in Fool Me Once is Lee Stone, and here we're following Alexis. And I could have sworn to high heaven that Alexis had a love interest in Fool Me Once. I mean, she was in that book going through a breakup with the boyfriend who was cheating on her, but I could have sworn that that book introduced somebody for her to date. But in any event, The Boyfriend Candidate is about our girl Alexis Stone. This is another romance that is single perspective. Single perspective, first-person romance, to me, like, why are we even bothering? Like, why are we... What are we doing? What are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Particularly in a situation like this that is fake dating. These are grown-ass, like, adults, damn near 30, out here playing pretend. It just feels a little silly to me, particularly when The Boyfriend Candidate is again set in the world of Texas politics. The love interest in this book is a person who's running for governor. Alexis does not know this. They meet up at a bar. They're about to have a one-night stand. And of course, in true rom-com-y book fashion, the hotel catches on fire. They are fleeing from the hotel. The newspapers that are there to cover this, spontaneous fire in downtown Austin happen to see a gubernatorial candidate running, half dressed out of this hotel with a woman in his arms. And so now they're going to fake date to, like, make everything smooth again, which feels fucking stupid. I do not live in the great state of Texas, but I feel that if I did live in the great state of Texas and I saw a single gubernatorial candidate running out of a hotel, I might, I can understand how you could get some attack ads out of that. I do see that. But if I was said gubernatorial candidate, I do have to wonder, why would I believe that I could fake date somebody to get out of this situation when the people who are doing our research before are just going to continue to dig? And so, like, fake dating always blows up in people's faces, but to do it in a book that is supposed to be about this person and they're going to fake date until the election, that just feels a little silly to me. It just does. It just feels a little silly. The same way it felt silly that it took forever for Lee Stone to appear. Lee Stone sent one of her friends to, like, comfort her sister. And it's just like, why would I read a book about because in the first book, Fool Me Once, it was so much about them healing their sisterly dynamic. And now in The Boyfriend Candidate, it's like Lee Stone doesn't give 2 fucks about Alexis, and it takes her forever to appear to talk to her sister. And when she does appear to talk to her sister, she's just, like, upset that her sister hasn't called or talked to her. And it just feels like so much of the progress that we made in Fool Me Once was just erased for what? Like, apparently... I have distinct memories of Fool Me Once being all about Alexis moving on from this boyfriend, and then we find out in the beginning of this book, The Boyfriend Candidate, that she apparently went back to him after he cheated and they broke up again. So it's like they broke up twice, or because this book definitely follows from the epilogue of Fool Me Once, but the events of the epilogue in that one have happened, and so it just feels very silly to me. I mean, maybe because I hated Fool Me Once, I just wanted to get through it and be done with it. And so whatever was happening with our girl Alexis, who is a school librarian, by the way, because of course she is. So it also has that thing about books where it features a bookish main character, and their relationship with the books just feels very silly to me. Um, I do think that the people like her, I'm gonna get dragged because I'm putting this on my main channel, but I do think that like people who have a relationship with books the way Alexis has a relationship with books, um, I would say that you need to seek help. I do. I do think it's very important for you to have actual human connection, like actual people that you talk to in your day to day life. I'm not saying they need to be in your age range, but I do think that it would probably benefit you to have some actual people that you talk to and to not have a relationship with books the way Alexis has a relationship with books, both as a child and as an adult. It just feels a little sad to me. It's giving very sad. It's giving Alexis is very pitiful. And so I don't think this is going to go much better than the first book, but I'm about to go lay down. Actually, I'm about to go heat up some breakfast. And then I'm going to lay down with some reading sprints and knock this out. And then, because I hate myself, because when I'm finished with the boyfriend candidate, which I'm going to come back and talk to you guys when I'm done when I'm done reading, there probably won't be a mid book update just because right now they've just started about to fake date, like they're laying out their little scheme or whatever. And so the middle of the book is going to be them going to appearances, flirting with one another. Also, it does this thing where the hero, for whatever reason, is like this person that can just like sexually charge up our heroine because she's just been in a sexless life for the past couple of years, but she just started talking to this man and now all of a sudden she's just uncontrollably wet. And it's just like, okay, we get it. We get it. The reader can't think our heroine is a slut. And so, of course, this person who she was going to have a one night stand with is also this person who she is going to like be with. And I say that like the first book, technically, Lee Stone did some slutty behavior that was part of her arc and her journey. And people didn't like that. People definitely didn't like Lee Stone. But I didn't like her because she was just boring. And I mean, of the two people in that book, she was probably the more interesting person. But I just want to make it very clear, I did not hate Lee Stone because she was out here slutting it up. But in this one, it's giving like my sister's a slut, so of course I'm the school librarian who only gets sexually charged because of this gubernatorial candidate. Anyway, when I'm done with this book, which I'm probably gonna wind up giving, I don't even know. There's no cheating in this one. Like it's just silly. So you could probably get it'll probably be 2 stars. It'll be okay. I have an arc of Midnight is the Darkest Hour. And between you guys and me, I do not think that Source Books has ever published a good book. Last night, I've been daily vlogging for the patrons, if you don't know. I have a Patreon, it's always linked down below. It's little $3 a month. So in months with 30 days or less, uh, I daily vlog over there. And so we've been updating. I've been talking about TV, talking about movies. If you've been missing content, it's over there. But I have an arc of Midnight is the Darkest Hour. And I was telling them that I don't think Source Books has ever published a good book. And so I asked them to let me know in the comments if they had read a good book from Source Books. Because everything I've read published by them has been absolute horrible. I say that, again, I did give The Last Housewife 2 stars, which to me is not a bad rating. My 2 stars is like most people's 3 stars. It's like perfectly middle of the road. But Source Books to me has, in my recollection, off the top of my head, it's only books that I think are mediocre or very mid. Midnight is the Darkest Hour has been comped to what is it? A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. Now, Stacey Willingham has never written a bad book. She's written 2 books, A Flicker in the Dark, and another one came out. I think I'm still on Goodreads. All the Dangerous Things. All the Dangerous Things came out this year. A Flicker in the Dark came out last year. Both of them are excellent. Both of them are good. She does not miss. So if Midnight is the Darkest Hour is anything like A Flicker in the Dark, then it'll already be a step above. I also do think that her thriller books are better written. I remember reading In My Dreams I Hold a Knife and The Last Housewife and really thinking that our girl, Dr. Professor, had a way with words.
Hello, it's me. I'm currently editing this video, and hopefully there's sound this time, but I felt it was important for me to come back and make a correction that I never thought In My Dreams I Hold a Knife had a strong pen game. I rewatched the vlog I did of that video, and it's just me dragging the writing and being confounded that the same author wrote The Last Housewife. So, that was a lie. She had a strong pen game. one time, back to the programming.
Which is why I'm so gagged that these books feel so poor because our other books are so good. Like there feels to be nuance there and like an actual attention to character detail and motivation. Like it definitely feels like two very different people are writing these books and very much like two different sides of her brain are at work writing these books. It's giving one is ghost written and one is really her, just on the sheer level of like what is happening. So I have higher hopes for Midnight is the Darkest Hour, but I have this physically, so I'm gonna get through this, and I'll be back later on. Probably it's like 8:50 in the morning right now. My goal would be to be back here at around 1 o'clock with my final thoughts on this. So we'll see. I'll bring my phone over. We'll check the time in my second update on this book to see if I was anywhere close to it. But right now, my hopes are not high on this one because, again, it's like single perspective, it's first person. And specifically here, like, I don't understand. To me, a romance really works when it's dual perspective because there's always one character in the romance, usually, it's specifically in a fake dating situation like this, where it's like an arrangement. It doesn't feel like, oh, these are two people who are just like really in love with one another. And so, like, okay, yeah, single perspective works. But here we're having two people who are coming together who really just wanted, physical release with one another. And so to see only one person's brain working through to like a serious relationship just feels it just feels mediocre to me, honestly. Like I'm sure in my lifetime, if you were to scroll through my Goodreads, you could see me giving a book that's single perspective romance. Like, what is it? I'm pretty sure Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola is single perspective. Maybe it's been a minute, but I don't think that's first person. I'm pretty sure that's third person. But again, don't hold me to it. So like again, it can be done. I just don't think this is gonna be the book to do it. So I'll be back later with more thoughts, more opinions. But until then, get your drinks ready, get your snacks ready, because this could be a long one. It could be a long one. It's already been 12 minutes of me rambling, and I've only read the first 90 pages. So when I finish, the 300 I have left or so. So after 276 pages, it might be a chunky video. So I'll check in later. Y'all, I so I've showered, I've eaten, and it is now, let me clear these notifications. It is 12:56 and this book is done. It's finished. I think my goal was 1 o'clock, so we're chugging along right on schedule. Um, I've started reading Midnight is the Darkest Hour or Midnight in the Dark Hour, whatever. Eventually, there'll be a book cover up for that, I promise. But we're not going to talk about that because I've only listened to 3%. And anyway, the boyfriend candidate, right? So much like I thought, the middle of this book was just something. One second, I'll hang out in the back over there. The middle of this book really was just a bunch of, I don't want to say foolishness, but it was a lot of things that I personally did not care for. It didn't do anything that I thought was interesting because it's a single perspective. And I'm sorry to all the girls out here who wanted to be a librarian and who are mousy and have no personality. Um, our girl Alexis Stone was just not interesting to read about. She was very boring. She had like no friends. We're supposed to believe that she had like this book club at school, and so she had two women there, and then she was sort of friends with one of Lee's friends at the beginning of the book. But it was so bland and boring. But the part of the book that really just I knew this was fucking foolish was in the middle of the book where, knee deep in this alleged fake dating situation, we are constantly seeing Alexis going out and doing campaign events, which I thought was very strange. Now, I say that Logan, the love interest in this book, was always present at these events and was kind of like there. And he would sometimes do things that we would see. But because this is a, one perspective situation, a lot of it really felt like I was watching Alexis campaign, and Alexis is not running for office. And I understand that the loved ones often go out and do campaign events and make public appearances, but it just felt very strange to me. It just felt very like that was not her passion. It wasn't her what she wanted in life. She was just kind of she was like very much being used, and she knew she was being used, and she was sort of allegedly going to get something out of it. Um, in theory, he like promised that he would like campaign for like better teachers conditions because she's a librarian, even though she does not have a master's of library sciences. So maybe that's not necessary to work in an elementary school, but anyway. So she was allegedly going to get, better school funding for people, but he was very much in the moment getting a tangible benefit from having her on the campaign trail. Although, again, let me just get to the part in the middle of the book. So, in the middle of the book, her sister, Lee Stone, the protagonist of the last book, comes to her and is like, I know what I want to get my endorsement because the Logan campaign is like convinced that if they can get Lee Stone to endorse them, that they might win the governor's race, which it does make some kind of sense because Lee Stone, she's now I mean, to spoil the first book, she is a state senator now. And so congratulations to her. And so they think that if they can get her to endorsed, it'll be a good thing because she was really close to the current governor in this book, and she had been able to move him in a very progressive direction before she ran for state senate, and so they think that an endorsement for her will help. And Lee, in her infinite fucking wisdom and heavy sarcasm there, decides that what she really wants in order to get the endorsement is for her sister to go on a date with her boyfriend's brother. Now, I would understand if Lee was not privy to the information, but Alexis, in her infinite wisdom, was telling everybody and their mother the fact that she was not really dating this man. Like, the circle of people that knew this was a fucking scam, I'm going to call it a scam because that's what it really was. Like, usually in a book, like, the stakes are low. But I feel like when you're running for the governor of, a state, the idea that you are lying to your constituents, like that's even if something stupid like this, like it's a scam at this point. So everybody knows that Alexis is out here scamming, and so Lee knows that she's out here scamming, and so for her ask to be to go on a date with my boyfriend's brother because my boyfriend's brother is into you was very much weird to me. It didn't make any goddamn sense. I said, now Lee, in what world can your sister go on a date when she is dating a very high profile individual? Like it's not like, oh, I'm fake dating the fucking surgeon so he can get a residency. Like, this isn't a situation like, oh, I'm fake dating a professor so Stanford won't fire him. Like, he's running for governor. The whole reason that they're running for governor, like, she's even in this mess is because they were seen together and there's photos of her. And so in what world is she going to go out on a date in public with this man and people aren't going to say something? It was fucking stupid. And so then the book goes along and it gets along and there's a situation where like they're kind of on a date. Her and this man, the boyfriend's brother, are kind of on a date, and then Logan shows up, and it's very weird to me. And I said, this is awkward, but it wasn't like a real date, like it was a group event. And again, it's not super weird because Lee was there and her boyfriend was there. And so you could argue that it would make sense for the boyfriend to bring his brother to this event. Like it was okay. But then they actually go on a date. Like they go to a wedding together and then they leave this wedding and they start making out on the street and they're like, oh no, we can't do this. And it was just like, it was I've read a lot of books and I understand that romance follows a formula, but I feel like the conflict here can't be broadcast like that. Like from the moment I was introduced to like this idea that she was going to go on a date with this man, that this is what Lee was asking, I said this is just stupidity. It was so fucking stupid, and for these characters to allegedly be growing, right? And then Lee does this thing in the she has like this speech about how, oh, you should be able to date whoever you want. You should be able to, date more than one person and, date around a little bit, see what you want. There's no need to settle down. Again, I think that's great, wonderful. But I don't think you can do that if you are dating a high profile individual and the express purpose of dating this person is to show that he is a seriously committed person who has been dating this person for over a year. Like, originally, I thought that the downfall of this couple was going to be some investigative journalism piece, that they were going to be like, these people have really never interacted a day in their life, and there's no reason for us to believe that they ever have. And, maybe that they would come out and just kind of like brush it off. But for the conflict to be like she just went on a date in public with a whole third, like, second person, and then in the middle of the date was like, oh no, I'm actually in love with this man, who throughout the course of the novel, I don't think that we really see them actually falling in love with one another. And so it was just a series of events that was just stupid. It wasn't technically as bad as the first book, where I think it was Brandon. I don't know what his fucking name is, but the man over there in that book was just stupid, like on a different level. Like, there's not even anything nice I could say about that on Fool Me. But here, like, it was fine until we got to the middle of the book, and it's like, oh yeah, this is what we're gonna do. And then the last third of the book was just painful to read. It was painful to read. It was these debates and these people trying to, talk to him about how he was getting cheated on, and he was doing press conferences saying it was all a lie. In what world do you think that you can go out literally like the day before the election and say, yeah, I lied to you guys about this, and I was never really dating this person. I just wanted you guys to think that I was a serious man. Like, it was just a series of stupid things. Also, the sex scenes in this were just bad. They were just bad. She was getting finger banged at a wedding. Then she was getting, a dick between her lungs. It was just Ashley Winstead. I don't know why she wants to write romance. Maybe she just really loves reading romance novels, but they're not good. But she's written two of them so far, Fool Me Once and The Boyfriend Candidate, and neither one of them are worth anybody's time. So that was a mistake on my part. Hopefully, now that I've essentially spoiled that book for you, then you will continue to avoid it, and I can move on with my life. Like I said, I have started the first 3% of, I still have it up on my Kindle. Midnight is the Darkest Hour. I'm at 3%. I'm having Siri read it to me. So I probably, partially because I don't know what I did with my actual Kindle, and partially because Siri's going to read it faster than I am. So Siri's going to read it to me, and I'm going to listen to it. My goal would be to finish this by around 7 o'clock tonight, because I technically am still supposed to be daily vlogging for my patrons. So it's now like 106. So if I finish by 7, that gives me 6 hours to read this book. And oh, I do need to stop talking, because I do have sprints going, and those sprints are not muted. So the sprints are going to come back on at any minute now. So, okay, I lied. I just decided to pause the sprints, but there was let me just swipe back over. This is the worst formatted arc I've ever had. So listening to Siri read this to me is not going to be fun. But there are content warnings for religious fundamentalism, substance abuse, ableism, colonialism, familial violence, sexual violence, child abuse, and murder. And the book, like I said, does open with a scene of a person, like the town, it's a small town, so the sheriff is like called a press conference. And so because the town is so small, everyone is at the press conference, and the sheriff is letting everyone know that, they found a head in the swamp. And because it was a small town, like, everybody already knew that there was a head in the swamp, but because, there's a press conference about it, now everyone is like on edge about it, because obviously if the police just show up to the swamp and say, oh yeah, there's a body, but maybe, you know a drunkard from out of town, or someone just passing through wasn't paying, I don't know, and like the alligator got it, or maybe the alligator got it somewhere else and they moved the body, who knows. But obviously if you're in a small town and the police are like, hey, we're having a press conference, it's likely murder. Like, this man got his head bashed in, it was not killed by the alligator. So clearly some things are going to be happening over here. Like I said, I don't think that Source Books has ever published a good book. I think that they I don't know what they be doing over there in their little editing team, but they always flop for me between, Casablanca, Nightfire, whatever the imprint is, the overall publisher, distribution, it seems very questionable on the titles that they acquire. So I'm very nervous about this one, but I also do think that even though I didn't like In My Dreams or The Last Housewife, they were stronger than either of the romances. Romances are bottom of the barrel. So I am expecting this to be maybe a disappointment, but a step up. So I'm going to go, like I said, around 50% mark, or at the end of the chapter nearest the 50% mark, I'll be back to update you guys on my thoughts and to give more context, because all I know right now is there's a disembodied head. So I'll check in with you guys a little bit later. Hopefully I'll be done with this book by around 7 o'clock. And that's all I got for right now. What is up, you guys? It's me. And it's 5:45. I was just filming for the past like 3 minutes and there was no sound. So I'm happy that I was able to see that while I was recording and not later. But I have to stop reading for this for today. The goal might have been to read uh 2 books today, but there's just no way. This book is too boring. I have plenty of time. Like I said, it's only 5:45. So there's plenty of time for me to finish this before my 10 o'clock deadline. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the reasons that I am a little bit bored with the story right now and hope that the narrative will turn itself around. So the main reason I'm bored is that the main character in this book, uh, Ruth, she has a biblical name because her daddy's a pastor, and Ruth is just a boring girl. There's nothing interesting about it. I take it back. There's actually one thing very interesting about Ruth, an action that Ruth did very early on in the book, but that's leading into a thing that just feels boring at this point in the narrative. I don't want to ruin anything. The book's not out until October, so I won't spoil anything about this book because you can't read it. There's no opportunity for you to have read it the way that there was for The Boyfriend Candidate. And so we're still in Louisiana. We're still dealing with this investigation into this dismembered head, and the plot in that area is thickening a little bit, slightly, slowly. I just don't care. And it's interesting because the last 2 thrillers that she wrote, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife and particularly The Last Housewife, I thought were really inventive on a sentence structure level. Like The Last Housewife, for as much as I didn't really care for it and I gave that book 2 stars, there was something that was compulsively readable about it, and that just does not seem to exist here. This book also is now the 3rd book out of 3 books that are thrillers that include an extent. I don't want to say extensive, but the flashbacks are definitely integral to the plot. In this one, it seems like there are more of them, and they are definitely more connected. Well, I don't say more connected. I don't think she's ever written a flashback that wasn't connected, but they just there's something about the way that these flashbacks are tied to the plot that just feels, until I see the ultimate conclusion, it's just like it's taking away from some of the experience, I would say. So I'm not super thrilled with these flashbacks, and I do think that if every thriller, suspense, mystery-esque novel that you're writing includes these well, here they're definitely extensive, but if they're including these flashback sequences, I do think that at a certain point it starts to feel like a crutch, and I would like something new here. Ruth is also a librarian, much like the good sis Alexis Stone back here, and it's giving raggedy. It's giving raggedy. She also has a very complicated relationship with her family, the same way that Alexis had a complicated relationship with her family, despite the fact that we spent the entire first book allegedly reconnecting these sisters. It's fucking foolish. So here, Ruth is an only child, so there is no sister for her to connect with, just this incredibly religious family that she seems to have like wanted to escape from at some point, if I'm to believe these flashbacks, even though in the present day she, does not seem to have been lucky enough to bring that to fruition. And so there's just very little in this narrative that I am drawn to, that I am engaging with. And at this point, at 42%, maybe 43%, depending on what page I stopped on, then it's hard for me to recommend that you guys go out and pick this up. It doesn't feel like something that I think the girlies need to be reading. And of the thrillers, it's definitely the weakest. It definitely, if I were to rank her thrillers right now, it would definitely be The Last Housewife, In My Dreams, and then whatever this is. Like, I had hopes because, at least as much as I didn't like them before, The Last Housewife was an improvement on In My Dreams. And so at least I thought we were going to continue that upward momentum in the thriller space. But this book just feels like another one of the romances. And I think that while, publishing in general seems to be moving faster for some authors, I'm not seeing that working out here. I don't know necessarily if it's the world's greatest idea to put out 2 books in a single year. Like, it's one thing in my mind if you're an established author, but In My Dreams, A Hold a Knife came out in what, 2022, like 2021, and here we are in 2023, 2 years later, and they have 5 books out already. Like it's not a winning strategy. It doesn't feel like a winning strategy, particularly when the boyfriend candidate had like no chemistry between those two characters. There was no work put in to move that along. And then here, as much as I don't really care for an investigation, I don't know if the setup for this character um, makes sense in a thriller, mystery, suspense novel. Like this character is very passive, and I understand that in certain cultural contexts, an active protagonist is not the move, and I think that you can have an inactive protagonist, but it just feels like Homegirl got nothing going on. Like there's no reason so far for Midnight is the Darkest Hour to exist, and so it's just like, what are we doing? Like it just feels like at this point you're playing in my face. Like you're playing in my face. It feels very much like a cash grab. It doesn't feel like there was any intent for any of the stuff that is happening so far. Like it's just we are going through the motions and we're trying to maybe hit the beats. But if we don't hit the beats, then like who even cares? And so I've made the executive decision to just turn this from a 24-hour reading vlog into a 2 a day situation because I just refuse to read any more of that book right now. So I will check in at some other point in the future when I have finished the book, when I've made some progress on the book. But it's not gonna happen today. I just can't do it. So I'll check in later. Hello, hello everybody. I'm back. I know it feels like I haven't left this room, but I have, and I have finished Midnight is the Darkest Hour. And I just have to say that this book might not be bad. It might not be the worst thing that has ever been, been pen to paper, right? Like it it might have at its heart something redeeming in it that somebody out there is going to find and enjoy. But for me, as the reader who has been tasked with reading and bringing the thoughts to you, I would have loved to read literally anything else than this book. It was just so boring. And I think what was so boring about it is that it is I don't even know what to call it, like a suspense, a thriller, a mystery, because everything that you need to know is just like handed to you at the very beginning. I don't think that there's any twists or turns. Um, the book itself feels like it's just spinning its wheels for a lot of the time to get to the conclusion, and the conclusion is just very. It feels like it's playing dress up as a suspense mystery thriller situation when really it's just a slice of life story about this woman named Ruth in the small town of Louisiana and the kind of overbearing religious nature of her family. It's been likened to A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham, and I think that's an insult to Stacey Willingham, um, because Stacey Willingham in her first book actually did a lot. She was doing a lot over there. It was engaging the entire time, and then she came back with a follow up, and the follow up, her sophomore novel was even better. And here I feel like Ashley Winstead really peaked, in my opinion, with The Last Housewife. It's the only book of hers that I've been generous with, and I think is actually like fine time. Like I said, I think in this video, 2 stars to me is most people's 3 stars, and I gave The Last Housewife 2 stars. But literally everything else I've read for her has just felt like it's just not quite there. I don't know if it's because she's publishing The Boyfriend Candidate at the beginning of the year and this book at the end of the year, and she had 2 books last year as well. I don't know if like she's just writing too many things at the same time. I don't know. I understand that as an author you have to hustle. I understand that the paychecks, the pay schedule in publishing is fucked or whatever. But from a reader perspective, from a reader experience, out of the last 4 books she published, one of them was good. Only one of the, and I know people really enjoyed Fool Me Once, and like it has its fans, and I'm sure that The Boyfriend Candidate even has its fans. But to me, I feel like something's getting lost in the sauce here. I think that we allowing authors going from like publishing one book a year to multiple books a year. It's just start paying them better. Like we need to be paying the writers everywhere what they are worth. And honestly, uh, maybe if she had had some more time to let this sink in and marinate in her mind and not feel like she had to get, I don't even know, I don't know her financial situation. So maybe she doesn't feel like she needed to get this book out. But somebody at Source Books, specifically in this case, let her down because this book is markedly a decrease in quality from The Last Housewife. I can't speak to the HarperCollins people over there with that monstrosity alleging to be a romance. They got their own problems with the editors dropping the ball. Her agent, somebody on her team, is not doing her any favors. Um, I understand that most people that have read Midnight is the Darkest Hour have really appreciated something that they found here, and maybe maybe I love that for them. I wish I could have been part of their number. But again, to me, this book isn't so much that it's bad, it's just that it's boring and that there's no reason for this book to be as long as it is, for the story to go on for as long as it does, because everything you need to know, you know at the beginning. And even though the book presents itself to like have questions that need to be answered, it's just a little bit ridiculous. In a voice note that I sent to my friend Aaron, good friend of the channel, over here, person who always has to hear my random thoughts and text messages. So love that for her. Um, as I was reading this, I remembered reading The Great Circle, and I bring up The Great Circle because both The Great Circle and for whatever reason, Midnight is the Darkest Hour have an interest in um, examining Twilight in a way that is weird. I think that Great Circle at least did some things to make that story its own. I still think it's very flagrant Twilight fan fiction, very flagrant Kristen Stewart fan fiction. It's a little weird, but that's what that book is. Here, the way that Twilight is used as a sort of like basis for Ruth's character and her journey in this narrative was just weird. It was weird, and then to have characters in the story commenting on it was even weirder. It just and it's obviously intentional because in the included discussion, the reading discussion at the end of the book, they bring that up. And I just don't understand what the point of that was. I don't think it really added anything. And in fact, I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, there's a scene where all of this is the Twilight things are coming together, and there's like a confrontational moment. And I just had to pause Siri reading to me and go, what are we doing here? Like, what is the purpose? So, um, I originally thought I was going to film this video a couple months ago when I read Fool Me Once, and I scrapped the idea. I scrapped the idea of continuing on with the Dr. Professor Ashley Winstead, and I just kept reading other things. But it's been a thing that's in the back of my mind, and I really don't like quitting things. Like, it's probably my biggest red flag is I don't know when to stop. Like, curiosity is always getting my ass. And in this case, I feel like I have been curious enough. Other times that I've done this with other authors, um, the person that's coming to me at the top of my mind is the other good doctor, the Dr. Professor Ali Hazelwood. But at least the Dr. Professor Ali Hazelwood, I think there is actual growth over there. And even in times where her stories feel stagnant, there's something enjoyable there. I am not having fun here, okay? So clearly, the good Dr. Professor Ashley Winstead is for the streets. And I'm as much as I want to be in the mix. I want to be with y'all. I want to be at the cool kids, table in the cafeteria. I want to fit in. It's very clear that this is the area that I don't. I've had a very good reading year. When I go look at my Goodreads and it sorts it out by, my 5 stars to my 1 stars or whatever, it's very top heavy. Okay. So, I don't think this is an instance of me just being like, I hate everything. I think this is a very clear instance of, me and Ashley were just not meant to get along. But I hope that you guys do. Like I said, if you're interested in a story about a girl from small town Louisiana and the religious overbearing family that she's in and the community that she feels trapped in. And again, I was rewatching my review of In My Dreams to Hold a Knife because somebody liked my Goodreads review, and I have a link to my vlog, and I just like watching my own content. This is the third time now. I said this in the boyfriend candidate was feeling a little bit retreading ground. This is the third novel. This is the third one. 3 for 3 with extensive flashback sequences. Every other chapter going back in time. And part of that, I do think we're going back in time, we're flashing back, we're doing things that I've already seen her do. And I would like to see her approach things differently. And maybe that's not fair because I do think that most mystery, thriller, suspense people that are writing today have a sort of formula that they work within, and they change some things and they add some, seasonings, and it's a whole new book. I don't want to say that The Last Housewife, In My Dream, and Midnight's the Darkest Hour are all the same book. I think that they're all very much distinct from one another, but I feel like the tools that Ashley is using, that she keeps going back to, I feel like we have cultivated that particular space, these flashback sequences that add nothing, that don't do anything for the reader. I think we've cultivated that. Like I said, I have just discovered for myself that I don't think I'm for her. I really thought that with particularly with The Last Housewife, because it was a sophomore novel and because I enjoyed some of it, I really thought that the pen game was really strong there. That, even if I thought that In My Dreams was weak, it was a debut. And so from debut to sophomore novel, we had exponential growth. Or not exponential, but we had seen some kind of growth. And then, Fool Me Once is in a different genre, there are different conventions. I'm not always a contemporary romance person, so I'm not gonna use my thoughts on Fool Me Once to judge the thoughts on the work that is mystery, thriller, suspense, crime fiction, right? But even like both genres she's writing into, they're not working for me, and they both feel like we're spinning our wheels. So I'm gonna give it a break. I'm gonna hit pause on the Good Doctor Professor Ashley Winstead, and maybe in like 5 years, when she's on book like 13, I'll dip back in and see what she's doing. Or if something just sounds like really right at my alley, wealthy people, famous people, just, Upper West Side people doing Upper West Side things. And it's actually that because y'all know I love a housewife. Y'all love a housewife, and that book was not really housewifing. It was very different than that. But still, like if the synopsis feels like it's in a wheelhouse that I am already going to be in a wheelhouse that I like to know the happenings of, then I will, obviously go over there and check it out. But I think for now, I'm done checking in on the Good Doctor Professor. I wish her nothing but the best. Midnight is the Darkest Hour comes out this October, so it'll be perfect in time for spooky season. So I would say this is less mystery thriller, more general crime fiction. There is, somebody is murdered in a swamp, and there is a little bit of investigation into that. We learn that this is not the first time it's happened. It's getting woven in with some religious practices from the area. Again, this theme of heavy religious oppression. I read the I'm pretty sure I read the little trigger warnings at the beginning, and so a lot of that is brought into the book as well. But really, the way this book ends, come talk to me in October when y'all have read this book about how this book ends, because what a choice that was. But with that said, I've given both of my Ashley Winstead books over the past 24, 48 hours a single star. They're not for me. They very much could be for you. I hope if you have read them, let me know your thoughts down below. If you read The Boyfriend Candidate, if you've read Fool Me Once, if you've read the other books, In My Dreams Will Hold the Knife, or The Last Housewife. I know that those were big on BookTube in the day. I'll leave links to all of my Ashley Winstead content up above in the cards. So yeah, that's what I got for you. Thanks for tuning in. It was nice coming back with a relaxed little reading vlog, but I will see all of you guys again soon in another video. But until then, and until next time.